Hey, everybody, what's going on? Happy Monday.
Yeah.
Hopefully everybody had a good weekend, had a good Mother's Day yesterday, if you celebrated. Man, we had a day, didn't we?
Yeah.
My mom was here, Tom's mom was here.
Yeah.
It was Tom's mom's birthday.
Yeah.
Tom made steaks on the grill for everybody.
Yeah.
We had cake.
Yeah.
It was a good day. We had a good day.
Yeah, and I fell asleep as soon as I was done. I was all right. I did shit up in the bed.
It's the first time that my mom has been to
this house.
To this house.
Yeah.
Because, so she drove all the way over here. She got lost.
Yeah.
Because she didn't use GPS.
Yeah.
I think she thought she knew where she was going, but I guess not.
All right, let's go ahead and get on this shit. We saw Leviathan.
Yes.
I had seen bits of this before. What year did this come out? I think I saw this
89.
Okay, yeah. I saw this in the Army. I was up on Guard Post Collier, up right on the DMZ between North and South Korea when we saw this. That's why I don't remember it that clearly. But I remember there were certain scenes that stuck out. I was like, oh yeah, I think I saw this one. I just wasn't really paying attention to it. They were probably playing that shit in the day room, But it's not a bad flick. It's trying to be kind of like Alien. It's got good special effects. It's taking place underwater, or they're trying to make it look like it's taking place underwater. I don't really buy it when you watch it. You're like, man, they're not under the water. There's a filter involved somehow.
Well, that's a whole filming technique. It's actually called dry for wet.
Yeah.
You know how it's day for night where they put like the blue filter over everything to make it look like it's nighttime when you shoot in the daytime?
Yeah.
Except it doesn't really. But yeah, dry for wet is when you film. And well, the weird thing about it is that I read other reviews of this, and I saw this in the theater when this came out back in 1989, and I remember liking it pretty good. And I don't remember the underwater scenes looking fake. I think that they only look kind of fakey now because of HD, because we watched it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's been, restored or upgraded or whatever. So it's like now it's like kind of more obvious. It still looks good, but you can tell that they're not
that
underwater.
Movie Underwater with fucking Lovecraftian Cthulhu and shit. That looked like it was underwater, and they were in a water a lot in that one. I could tell.
Yeah.
But when they were walking across the surface of the ocean, like they were on the surface of the moon, it looked real. Kicking up dust and everything, and silt. Going through the water. This doesn't look as real to me. It looks Hollywood. But the creature effects are pretty good.
Well, Stan Winston did them. That's why. He also did Terminator and Aliens and Jurassic Park and.
It's an all-star cast.
I think the cast is the best thing about this.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, I actually like this movie. Like I said, I saw it back in '89, so I was interested when it turned up on Amazon Prime for free. I was kind of interested to see it again because I hadn't seen it since then. And the funny thing about it is that for whatever reason, in 1989 and also a little bit into 1990, there were 5 bajillion movies that came out that were like underwater horror or sci-fi movies. Most famous of those, probably the one that did the best, was the James Cameron movie, The Abyss. But the thing about it, I kind of read, nobody really knows why this is. I suspect that because people had heard about The Abyss and its production schedule got pushed back, I kind of feel like a lot of other studios are like, well, we're going to make an underwater horror movie and we're going to scoop it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we'll come out before The Abyss. Because there was The Abyss, there was this one, Leviathan, there was Deep Star 6.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Roger Corman did one, which I think was called Lords of the Deep. And then in 1990, there was one called The Rift. Yeah. So it's like, so they all came out like right around the same time.
Yeah.
This movie,
I remember when all that happened.
It's like,
these underwater movies, man.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how that happens sometimes. But there was like 6 of them, like in a really quick succession.
And most of them weren't any good.
Yeah. Yeah, CB said Stan Winston passed away a few years ago. Yes, he did, unfortunately. But so, I kind of like this movie, though. But I will note that it is very, very derivative, particularly of Alien and of The Thing.
Yeah.
And even if you just have a passing knowledge of like horror movies, it will be very, very apparent that that's what they're trying to homage. Let's put it that way. Because I mean, there is like a mutagen element, And there is like a part where a couple of the characters like merge together, just like in the thing.
Yeah, this thing wasn't alien at all, was it? It was all totally
No,
man-made,
it
right?
was it was what it was okay. So here's the setup. Like I said, the cast, there's a lot of like Oscar-winning shit like behind this, right? So the guy that directed it, it's George P. Cosmatos or Cosmatos. I'm not sure where
Cosmatos, probably.
yeah, I'm not sure where the emphasis is. He also directed Cobra and Rambo 2. And he also did Of Unknown Origin, that Peter Weller rat movie that we reviewed not too long ago. This also has Peter Weller in it. The guys that wrote it were David Webb Peoples, who wrote Blade Runner and 12 Monkeys. And the other guy was Jeb Stewart, who wrote Die Hard and The Fugitive. And as I said, Stan Winston did the special effects, like the creature effects. Unfortunately, you don't get to see them all that much, like, you know, the way they edit it, or it's kind of quick. Like, you kind of see it, but not, like, full length. And the production designer on this, Ron Cobb, was the same guy that designed the DeLorean time machine for Back to the Future.
Good.
And he did he did work on Aliens as well. So this was, like, obviously a big budget production with a lot of talent behind it. I just think that, and like I said, the cast is great. This had fucking Peter Weller in it, Ernie Hudson, better known as the fourth Ghostbuster. Richard Crenna was in this. Amanda Pays was in it. Daniel Stern was in it. The chick from Beverly Hills Cop.
She's in it.
Hector Elizondo was in this. Meg Foster is in this.
Yeah.
She's not in it a lot, but she's kind of... So this has like a super, super stacked cast. And I think like the cast is probably the best thing about it. But... Okay, so the premise of it is that it's very much like Alien, except it's under the ocean, you know what I mean? So it's like they're, I guess they work for like a mining company. So they're down at the bottom of the ocean, it's like 16,000 feet down or something like that. And they're mining minerals or whatever the fuck. And they've been down there for 3 months, I think they say. And it's only a few days until supposedly they're going to come and get them, you know what I mean? You know. So I have only 2 days till retirement. Yeah, you know how that goes, like in movies.
This is the part where I'm not buying it. All right. If you look at the sets of the underwater stuff, where they live, all their equipment, it all looks brand new. None of it's got any scratches. None of it's even dirty. So that's the thing that it got me at first. I was like, this doesn't look like a workplace, and they don't really look like they're working. In Underwater, it did. That movie, Underwater. Everything was banged up, scratched up. Things had dents in it. Tools that were used for mining looked like they had been used, maybe even abused. Not in this. Everything looks brand new, almost like something out of an episode of Doctor Who. You know, like something out of a television series. This part, it needed a more lived-in looking environment, more beaten up. It would have been a lot more convincing. It looked too much like a movie.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they didn't do that enough, even though you'd think that they would have learned their lesson from, like, Star Wars, for Christ's sake, which was back in the 70s, where everything looked like it was beat up and had been used and stuff like that.
Well, Alien and Aliens.
And Alien had that, too.
It was just beat up looking, yeah.
So, yeah, that always does look better. Now, the ship did kind of look crappier and crappier, like, as time went on, but that's because, you know, it was kind of... shit was going sideways. So, for the first part of the movie, you're just kind of getting into the gist of... They have, like, kind of a setup at the beginning where one of them, like, you know, his suit, like, depressurizes, like, before he's coming back in and stuff. So they kind of, like, have an exciting moment, like, at the beginning. But then it's sort of established that Richard Crenna, who plays the doctor, is kind of like... They don't ever explain, like, where the fuck he was, because they kept calling him. Like, hey, this dude's, like, depressurizing, like... Where are you? I was like, what is he, like, taking a dump? Is he in the bathroom jerking off? Like, where is he? You know what I mean? Like, he didn't say. And he just seems, like, really half-assed about it. You kind of find out later why that is, but you don't really find out, like, where he was, like, all that time. So basically, they kind of just, you know, establish all the characters and what's going on, how long they've been there, and it's like they're supposed to come get picked up and all this other stuff. But much like Alien is kind of set up like that. And they find, while they're out on a little expedition, like looking for, because they have a quota, like, of all these minerals that they have to get. And they find this Russian, like a sunken Russian ship called the Leviathan. And they kind of film it and stuff, and then they would go back in there, and then they figure out, like Richard Crenna, who kind of knows everything, he's like, that looks like it was torpedoed, like it was scuttled on purpose. And he's like, I wonder why that could be. And so they actually kind of go in the ship and get some of the stuff. And some of the stuff they get, like mysteriously, all of the records, because there's like a skeleton in there, but it looks a little weird, like it looks a little mutated, like the head's too big or something. And so they find like all of this, all the crew records and all that other kind of stuff, and like they're all dead. And they find like a little video of the guy that was running it, and he gets cut off, and there's all this other mystery about it. So one of the things, there's Daniel Stern plays a character named Sixpack. They all have nicknames. And I don't even know if they said what his real name was, but that was what his nickname was. And he steals a little flask of vodka that was in the crew's stuff. And you find out later that it was this vodka that had the mutagen in it. Because what this ends up being is that, I guess this Russian ship, they were experimenting with genetic shit, like, on the crew. And, like, they didn't want them to know that they were giving them this stuff, obviously. So they put it in the vodka. So the people would be drinking it, and then they'd start mutating, and then they could, like, watch them, like observe like what happened. And I think they mention in there that it's like mixing like human and fish DNA, because I think what their ultimate goal was, I think they bring up, is that they were trying to make humans that could live and work under the water, like they could breathe underwater and all that other kind of stuff. So they were kind of trying to mix human and fish DNA.
Yeah, that's kind of like what the new Alien movie was about,
right?
Where they wanted the xenomorph not for bioweapons. That never made any sense to me. All right, I didn't believe that for a minute. That was a cover story. What they wanted it for later on in the new Alien movie is to upgrade human DNA to make you more spacefaring. But that's a much better idea.
So it was a similar...
Yeah, you couldn't die of old age. You didn't, get sick. You could probably live outside in space, for a while. So that would be a good idea. You wouldn't be human when they were done with you, though.
Well, no. And I think that... And, well, spoiler alert, that's what happens here, too. Because, when you go tampering in God's domain, as they say, like back in the 50s movies, terrible, terrible shit happens. Especially when you're like, hey, I have an idea. Let's mix a human and a fish, and we'll just see what happens. Just for the fuck of it. You know what I mean? Just, just for shits and giggles. So, apparently that's what happened. So they figured out that the Russians had like seen what had happened on this ship and were like, fuck that, and like torpedoed it and like to the bottom of the ocean. Like, and then they concocted a cover story, because I think they said at some point that it's like that ship was apparently still with the fleet somewhere, except obviously it's not, because it's at the bottom of the ocean. So it's like obviously they had a cover story about where it went, so they didn't want anybody finding out about it. So because Daniel Stern's character has snuck the vodka, and he sneaks off to his bunk with porno mag, about to have a drink of vodka and have a little fun. And so he drinks the vodka, and he also gives it to what is her name that was in Lisa Eilbacher, I think is her name, that was in Beverly Hills Cop. Yeah, she's in this too.
She played Jenny.
Yeah, in Beverly Hills Cop. Yeah, she's been in a bunch of other stuff too, but yeah, she was also in that. So she also takes a sip of the vodka, which, like I said, they don't know at first that that's where the mutagen is. Daniel Stern is the first one to get sick, and the next day he has these like weird lesions on his back, and his eyes are all red, and he's like, man, I feel like crap, like what the fuck? And he goes to the doctor, and he ends up dying like only a few hours later. And so the doctor and Peter Weller plays a guy named Beck. He's kind of like, he's a geologist, and I guess he's kind of like he's kind of the dude that's in charge of the operation or whatever. And they're like, well, okay, so let's not tell anybody yet, because we don't want everybody freaking out and panicking, because ostensibly the company is supposed to come and get them like in 2 or 3 days, like, and come and pick them up. So they didn't want anybody like flipping out, right? Because they still had like some shit to do. So Daniel Stern dies, and then Lisa Eilbacher, who's, I can't remember what her character's name was. Bowen? That's right. Yeah, because they kept calling her Bo. So, so she starts getting sick too. And then she goes in and sees Daniel Stern's like dead body, but it's still like moving around and it's like mutating and shit. Like it's got like all fucking, it's all scaly and it looks like fucking mutated.
Jeez,
so she
like something out of the Thing.
Yeah, and then like her hair starts to fall out.
Yeah.
And she realizes, and like she's got all this scaly skin on her neck, and she's like, "Oh shit, that's the same thing that's happening to me." Like, because he came back like after he was dead, so she offs herself pretty much. Like she just like slits her wrist in the shower, and however, that does not help her because, as we know, being dead doesn't preclude you being mutated into a fish person, and somehow the two of their I guess they put the two bodies together because they're gonna dispose of them. But when they put them together, they fused. Yeah. And they're like, well, shit, we really need to get rid of this right now. So they put them in one body bag, and they're going to take it, like, and get rid of it. But while they're carrying the body bag, like, it starts moving. And they're like, shit, they might be still alive in there. And, like, dumbasses, they open it. And, of course, like, one of them gets scratched by this creature or whatever. So as it goes on, each crew member in turn becomes infected with this mutagen. So it's just kind of like passing on from person to person. And as it goes on, like it's much like the Thing, it keeps integrating each new person. Like I said, they don't really like the creature looked cool, but you never get like a full look at it.
Because it probably didn't look that good.
But I mean, if Stan Winston did it, I'm sure it looked good. Like in the glimpses, it looked good. Because you could see like some of the crew members like faces sticking out of the back and it looks like pretty cool. I thought
it's probably not one thing. It's probably two or three things.
Yeah.
And you shoot one of them, like up close face, and then
well, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. It looks pretty good though.
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty good.
Looks like a fish face kind of.
Because they did
evil fish.
Because there were some other things too. Which again, much like the Thing, like if you cut a piece off of it. Because at one point, like, they cut off a piece of, like, a tentacle or, like, it was part of a foot. And it was kind of moving around on its own.
Yeah.
So there was, like, pieces of it moving around.
Yeah, and it's got people's faces in there.
Yeah.
Used to be.
Of the people that, got sucked into the Thing.
Yeah, it didn't say if they were alive. Were they talking?
Yeah.
They were talking? I don't remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were still alive in there.
Okay,
because I think one of them said something like when that one guy got integrated, like I think when one of the other dudes saw him, he was just like, help me or something like that. So yeah, I think they were still aware of what was going on. So, which would be pretty horrible if you think about it.
You're trapped in this monster.
Yeah. I mean, it's like there's something inherently terrifying about being stuck down 16,000 feet under the ocean. And you can't leave. And there's a fucking monster. It was like a virus, which is like turning people into monsters, and it's like super contagious, evidently. And then like later on, like Meg Foster, she's not down in the mining facility. She's on the surface because she's like the CEO of the mining company, and it's hilarious because I mean it's Meg Foster. She's got those creepy eyes, which are her real eyes because we've seen her in real life, like at a horror convention, and it's like that's really what her eyes look like. But she's, they have her hair all slicked back and she's just talking like very reasonably. And I was just like, come on, clearly she's evil. I mean, I don't even know how. And she's all saying, well, I'm sorry, we can't come get you like when we were supposed to because there's this really, really super bad hurricane, you guys. And so it'll be like 12 hours. And then she's like, no, and now it'll be like 48 hours. And now it'll be all this other stuff. And so she's basically like lying to them saying why they can't come get them because much like in Alien, the company kind of knows what's going on and it's just kind of like, yeah, we're just going to leave them down there.
Because that technology.
Because they find out later, like, I don't remember how they exactly found it, but they find out later that the company has already said that they're all dead. Even though at this point, 3 or 4 of them were still alive.
Putting out the cover story.
So it was putting out the cover story. It's like, oh, there was this terrible accident. Yeah. We don't know what happened. They're all dead. Here's their names, boo-hoo, and all this other kind of shit. So, yeah, so they already know, hey, the company's not coming to get us because... And they're probably lying about the hurricane, too, because when they went to check, like, the weather information, it was all locked. Like, they couldn't get it. So they were lying about there being a hurricane on the surface, and they couldn't come get them. So it kind of comes down to, at the end... There's really only 3 of them left. I think Peter Weller, Amanda Pays, and Ernie Hudson are the last three, and they're kind of like battling the big monster. He's not that big, but I mean, he's bigger than a person. And they're trying, and it turns out that Richard Crenna, who was the doctor, he was kind of working with the company too, because they were thinking about escaping, because they had like escape pods or escape bubbles or something, and he went and like escaped all of them, like, so they couldn't get in them. So I was like, wow, what a shithead. But then like he immediately gets like eaten by the monster. So, you know, poetic justice.
Orders by the company.
Yeah, he was under orders. So it's like, that's why he was acting kind of shifty like the whole time. So there was that. So like I said, that was very much like Alien. So there's the three of them are left, and then they decide to, well, Peter Weller kind of stays behind. He lets the other two go up in the suits, and they have what are the tanks, the air tanks, and they're gonna like shoot up, you know, because they're, like I said, they're way deep. And we're sitting there going, man, they're gonna get the bends. Like, you can't go up that fast. Come on now. But it's like, I mean, I guess they figured it out. But so the three of them get up there. I thought this was hilarious because I remember when I saw this at the theater, and when the three of them get up to the surface, I was like, oh, watch, now they'll get eaten by sharks. And then a bunch of sharks come. They don't get eaten by the sharks. But I was like, oh, of course. And then Ernie Hudson is just like, it's just not our day, is it? I was just like, yeah, exactly. It's the fucking ocean. But there was a helicopter coming to get them. But unfortunately, Ernie Hudson, because he's the black guy, he can't make it. But he kind of sacrifices himself because the monster comes up after them. And Ernie Hudson was like, you can't let it get out, you know what I mean? Like, because it's really dangerous. So he kind of stays behind and sort of sacrifices himself to kill it. And then Peter Weller does a very Jaws thing, like pitching a explosive like into its mouth or whatever. He says something very simple, because you know how in Jaws, how he says something like, smile, you son of a bitch, or whatever?
Yeah.
What does he say in this one? Open wide, motherfucker, or something. He says something very, like very similar to like what Roy Scheider said in Jaws.
Says, fuck you, and then throws the dynamite. It was that same scene.
It's the same scene.
Same scene.
Like
also.
pretty much.
He goes, fuck you too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Russell. Kurt Russell's the shit, bro.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So ultimately, Peter Weller and Amanda Pays make it out of the shit, and I think you missed the last scene. Because as soon as it happened, like, they showed the two of them, like, walking on the aircraft carrier or whatever the hell. Or the oil rig or whatever. And I said, oh, he's going to punch out Meg Foster. And I don't know why I remembered that. But yeah, they walk up and Meg Foster's like, I knew you would make it. All this other kind of stuff. How do you feel? And he's like, pap! And then he's like, I feel a lot better, actually.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I remember this. I remember him punching Meg Foster in the face. Which she had it coming, really. I mean,
yeah. The movie is it's a pretty good movie. Not a bad movie at all. It's along the lines, like we said several times before, of Alien and The Thing.
Yeah, and you can tell that they very deliberately were homaging those two movies in particular.
Even though it's a good movie, it was a high budget movie. It's got a good cast. It doesn't, for me, I can't put it at that same level as The Thing or the Aliens.
Hardly any movies are at that level.
I'm not quite buying it. It looks too much like a late 80s, early 90s movie.
Which is what it was. So I guess that's okay.
And Alien had a very lived-in feel. Same with The Thing. This is polished and stuff looks bright and new and shiny, and it looks like movie sets to me. You know, and even though it had good special effects,
it did, yeah.
It just didn't have I didn't really feel like I was underwater. It just doesn't hold up the same way. It didn't look
grimy enough.
It doesn't look grimy enough. It doesn't hold up the way the other two movies were talking. You know, or Blade Runner doesn't hold up like that. You know, those movies feel like they got some grit to them. You know, But there was a lot of movies in this era that were like this. And they were coming out, and it was kind of like an in style way of making a movie. I mean, so shit goes in and out of style with movies. Like for a while, John Woo was big in Hollywood, like that fucking first or second. I think it was the second Mission Impossible, and just man, that was in the day. in those days,
It was cool in those
people
days.
liked it.
But
You
it's a
watch
little
it
cheeseball
now, you're
nowadays.
like, oh, this is horrible.
Kind of cheeseball.
The tone is way off for Mission Impossible. There's something about this where the visual tone is just off to me. So I just can't.
Yeah, I feel like it could have been darker and grimier.
Yeah.
Probably would have.
You would have made a big difference.
It probably would have. I mean, like I said, it's still kind of derivative of other better movies. That said, it's still pretty entertaining. And like I said, I think the cast is like the best thing about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you like Aliens and The Thing, then, go ahead and watch this one. You can watch it for free.
It's on Amazon Prime. And CB said it was on YouTube for free, too. So.
Yeah.
So it's, like, available.
Yeah,
I was just curious to rewatch it because, like I said, I saw it in the theater. I saw The Abyss in the theater, too, like, right around the same time.
Yeah.
And, so I was curious to rewatch it because I hadn't seen it in such a long time. And I remembered it having, like, a really good cast. I remembered liking it, but not loving it. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, that was pretty good. Which is still how I feel about it.
Yeah.
That's still pretty good. Now, some people really go to bat for this movie. It does have a cult following.
I don't doubt it.
It didn't do all that great at the box office. Like, it was second place, I think, when it came out. But it ultimately, I think it just was shy of, like, making its production budget back. It wasn't a hugely, hugely expensive movie. Well, I guess it was slightly expensive for the time. But I think it just didn't even quite make its production budget back. So it wasn't a total bomb, but it didn't make its money back either. So
it was a slight bomb.
Yeah, so I don't really know, and I don't know if that was because people were like, no more with the underwater movies, because I don't remember if this came out before or after The Abyss, or Deep Star 6. I know they all came out around the same time, but I don't remember which one came out first. I remember seeing both. I haven't seen Deep Star 6, I don't think. But I saw The Abyss and Leviathan in the theater at around the same time period. So I do kind of remember that. Because I was like 17, I guess, when this came out. And there wasn't anything to do where I lived. So basically we went to the movies all the time.
Yeah.
So I saw like a lot of stuff in the theaters back then. Although I would usually wait until it came to the dollar theater. Because we had a dollar theater that had 6 screens. Mm-hmm. And it was like $1. If you waited like 3 weeks or something like that, like all the first run movies would be in there and you could see them for $1. So that's what I would do. I might have seen this at the dollar theater. Because I was a broke-ass bitch back then. Mango said it came out just after The Abyss in the UK. Yeah, so maybe it was that. I remember liking The Abyss, but, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like The Abyss was less a horror film. Am I wrong about that? I thought I was. See, I remember going to see it. I could be totally misremembering this, but I remember going to see The Abyss and thinking it was going to be like a horror movie, and it was kind of not. You know what I mean?
I don't remember what happened.
Because it was aliens, right? But I thought the aliens were like nice aliens, or maybe I'm just remembering that wrong.
I don't remember much about it. My favorite underwater movie is Underwater.
Yeah.
It came out, 2019, 2018, something.
Actually, it might have been 2021.
Might have been 2021.
Or it might have been more right now. I can't remember.
Had that girl from that vampire series in it.
Yeah.
But that was a great movie.
Kristen Stewart.
That's a great movie.
Not the Twilight movies. They're terrible. Not because of her, but
yeah. See Underwater. That's a great movie.
She's actually a really good actress. Like if you see her in other things,
she's good in that too.
She was good in that, and she was she played Joan Jett in The Runaways.
Huh, I didn't see that one.
And she was in this weird ass movie called Personal Shopper that I reviewed. It's kind of like a ghost story, but kind of sort of like a low key ghost story. And she was really good in that. So she can act when it's not Twilight. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like she got an unfair shake. Same with Robert Pattinson, who was in the Twilight movies. I think they kind of got a reputation because they were in those terrible, terrible Twilight movies. And it's like, as terrible as they were, like, they still made all the money. Because, of course, all the teenage girls are going to go see it because they love those books. And the books are also terrible. But, you know.
Look at baby. What are you doing running around? She's looking for
What's the matter? She heard birds out there earlier. Like, outside the window. She was, like, super jacked about it.
All right, so you want me to make this a sandwich? We got steak.
Oh, Mango says, you're correct. It is not a horror movie. See, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, just by virtue of this being an actual horror movie. This is a monster movie. So maybe I remember liking The Abyss, but I remember liking this one a little bit better because it was a horror movie, and The Abyss was kind of sold as a horror movie, except it's not really.
There was another movie that was like a space movie that was a horror movie where they were in some haunted ship. It was like a dimension to hell that they found.
Event Horizon.
Event Horizon.
Yeah,
this movie kind of reminds me of Event Horizon in the way of where it's a good movie, but it doesn't quite land. Event Horizon I watched it. I was going, this is not a bad movie the way it's made and everything. I should be enjoying this, but I don't buy it.
I like it, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I'm just like
Event Horizon. It's one of those movies, but I can totally see why some people really, really love that movie.
Yeah,
I can see that. It just didn't hit exactly for me. But it's still good.
Too much stuff was missing.
Like I've seen it a couple times.
Kind of like Prince of Darkness.
John Carpenter's movie. Which I've seen that multiple times because I
can't get into it.
Every few years, I'm just like, well, I'm going to give it another shot. I'm just like, man, I just can't.
It ain't
There's something about it that's like just not hitting right for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure
There's nothing coherent in that movie.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's just.
But it's just, I don't know, the execution is a little lacking for me with that one. Yeah, let's see. Kevin says Deep Rising was funny and campy. I think I reviewed Deep Rising on my Flickers of Fear series, if I remember correctly, because I know I watched it recently. And Mango said, yes, the aliens were benevolent in The Abyss. That's what I thought. Because I thought it was going to be a horror movie, and then I was like, what the fuck, James Cameron? This is like not, I don't want friendly aliens. Come on.
Yeah.
I want aliens eating people. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mango said all the other underwater movies were horror, but not The Abyss. Yeah, I just wasn't, yeah, CB said, was it this one where the guy got bit in half in the dive suit? And Mango said, no, that's Deep Star 6. Well, now I'm going to have to watch Deep Star 6, because that was the other underwater horror movie that came out around the same time as this one, and I don't think I've seen it. Not that I remember. I might have, and I just forgot all about it. But for some reason, this one, I just saw it in the theater, and it's just, I remembered it, like, kind of fondly. So when I saw it come up, I was like, let's watch that one again, because I haven't seen it in a while, and I love Peter Weller. He's great in this, too. Like, I really like him in this. Like, everyone's kind of great. It's a good ensemble. After we watched Leviathan, we actually started watching...
Yeah.
Kolchak the Night Stalker. Now, I've reviewed the two Kolchak the Night Stalker movies on my Scare Salon channel, but I had never seen the series.
We're watching the TV series.
So we're actually watching the TV series. So I don't know. We might review the series next Monday.
And they are free on YouTube.
Yeah, like in two parts. Because we've only watched the first episode, and then we started watching the second episode, and I fell asleep. So we're going to have to start it over, like tonight.
It's a good series. It's kind of like... It inspired the X-Files.
Yeah.
It's about a guy who works for a newspaper. He's kind of like an investigative reporter. And he's got a lot of good detective skills. And he's always investigating weird shit. And it turns out it's paranormal.
Yeah, it's like he always gets in the middle of...
Yeah, and people don't believe it.
And he's real, like, wisecracking and hard-boiled and everything.
Yeah. And the last
Darren McGavin is...
Yeah, the first one that we saw was... First episode of the series was called The Energy Eater.
Yeah.
And they're investigating all these strange deaths happening in a hotel. Or
no, a hospital.
Hospital, I mean.
Yeah, a hospital.
And it turns out...
A new hospital.
Yeah, a brand new hospital. Turns out the floors are cracking and all kinds of shit. And it turns out that the hospital is built on top of basically an ancient Indian American or Native American god. Basically, it's like a power nexus. He gets involved with this guy who's his tribe is from that area, and they try to battle this extra dimensional being.
Yeah. It's pretty fun.
It's pretty good.
Because Tom had never seen any of the Kolchak stuff. Because, like I said, I had seen the movies, and I did like a real in-depth like review of the two movies, like The Night Stalker and The Night Strangler, and I really liked those. But I kept meaning to get around to seeing the series because I never saw it.
Yeah.
So I was like super excited when somebody has uploaded them to YouTube. Yeah. So we've started watching them. But
the guy who the star of the show, I don't know the guy's name. What's his name? The old guy.
Which guy?
The guy who's the investigator. What's the name? Kolchak. What's the name? What's the actor's name?
Darren McGavin.
Darren McGavin. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of reminds me of something off of like Columbo.
Yeah.
He's like that kind of, and it's pretty good. It's pretty. Now it's canned. It's from the 70s. It has kind of a canned feeling.
It's
but everything did back then. You know?
Yeah.
But it's still fun to watch. Or at least that one episode was.
And you know what's funny is that, like, after, because remember on Friday night we were talking about, like, on the Sidetrack show, we were talking about all those old cartoons and, like, old shows and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like after the show, or on Saturday or whatever, we ended up watching an episode of Sigmund and the Sea Monster.
Oh boy, man.
Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
Yeah.
And a couple episodes of the Herculoids.
Yeah.
And an episode of Arc 2.
Yeah.
That we found.
Yeah. Arc 2. It's up there. There's one season of that. It's okay. It's kind of like Star Trek.
Yeah.
It did have some cool vehicles.
Not nearly as good as Star Trek, but yeah.
He's riding around in a real jetpack, flying around. But it was made for kids. Yeah. But it was, not better than a cartoon.
Yeah.
And a little more kiddie-like than, say, Star Trek. Just a little bit. An adult can watch it. It had the dude that played fucking Dr. Smith from Lost in Space. He was playing this guy with an Irish accent, had all these children slaves.
He was playing
collecting garbage. It's a post-apocalyptic
world. Like Fagin.
Fagin, yeah.
Which is like wasn't that from like a Charles Dickens?
Yeah, Arc 2 is a post-apocalyptic adventure like 200 years in the future. And they got this high-tech vehicle they're going to ride around there helping people trying to rebuild civilization. I don't know how you rebuild civilization doing that, but that's how they're going to do it.
Kevin Evans says Deep Star 6 was even more low-budget feel than Leviathan. Okay, so maybe I'll skip it then. And then Tom Baker says Kojak the Night Stalker?
No,
Kolchak. Kolchak the Night Stalker. Yeah. It's, like I said, it was the inspiration for the X-Files. It was a show from the 1970s. Although, I thought the series came first and then the movies were after. But the movies were made first. Like, they were one-off movies. And the movies were so popular that they made a series, but the series for some reason didn't take off.
It ran one season.
And it only ran one season. So, but I've always been curious to watch it because I love the movies.
Basically, this dude's a paranormal investigator. Basically.
Yeah, he doesn't mean to be. He just works for a regular ass newspaper and he just works on regular ass cases.
No, they're not.
But it so seems to be that a lot of the cases that he ends up working on ends up having paranormal shenanigans.
I didn't take it as normal cases. I took it as he was selecting shit that was weird to go.
Well, I think he's kind of into that.
He was into that kind
because
of shit.
His editor is always telling him, why don't you go cover that gang shooting? And he's like,
no,
boring, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's all these people over
he
here.
wants to do weird shit.
People, weird unexplained deaths at this hospital, man. There's something not right about this. We're gonna check this out.
Yeah, it's hopefully, maybe it's paranormal.
And they hint that there's fucking vampires in this one, and demons, and ghosts, and every psychic shit.
Well, the first original Night Stalker movie, Kolchak the Night Stalker, was a vampire.
Okay.
And then the second one, was the Night Strangler, was actually a dude. Was it a demon? And who brought him back from the dead or made him immortal or something. It was something like that. And he was but he was kind of rotting because he wasn't sacrificing enough to the demon or something. It's been a while since I've seen it. Mango says, when it comes to movies and films involving undersea creatures, you cannot beat the greatest film of all time, Humanoids from the Deep, with the mighty Doug McClure.
That's all right.
That is a good movie. I really do like Humanoids from the Deep. Did we review that? I thought we did.
I think we did. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we reviewed that at some point. Mango said, I have the series. It was ahead of its time. Oh yeah. Oh, big time.
Kolchak.
Yeah, Kolchak is.
What else is good? If you guys haven't seen fucking the television series of fucking Logan's Run, man, you're missing out. That's a good series. It's a lot of the same writers that wrote on Star Trek and Twilight Zone, but it was good. Good, well thought out series, well written, good sets. Some of it's shot outside, and they introduce a character named Rem, who's kind of like Data from Star Trek.
Yeah,
he was like Data before Data.
Yeah,
he was the guy who played the guy who shot the dude in the head in The Thing. The Thing movie. What was his name? Copper? No. What was his name? Got the eyebrows.
I can't remember what his character name was.
He was in charge, and he was the one that had the pistol. Remember, and he handed it over because I did not go near that blood. That guy. Yeah. He plays Rem, and he's actually the best character in the series. And he shows up probably about 4 or 5 episodes in.
I don't remember, but yeah, he wasn't in the first few.
Yeah, they find him and reactivate him. And he has a knowledge of history, so he knows a lot more than Jessica and Logan know.
Yeah, because they're kind of dummies.
Yeah, because
they're not dummies.
They were inside.
They're sheltered.
They were sheltered. Yeah,
that's all. Yeah, Mango said Night Stalker is a great series, well worth reviewing. Written by David Chase, as I recall, who wrote The Sopranos. So yeah, I mean, we have to watch them all. Obviously, we've only watched the first episode, and then we started watching the second one, and then I fell asleep because man, we had a day. We had a whole weekend, so we were like worn out.
Yeah.
So we'll watch the second one again, and we'll get through them, and maybe we'll review them on Monday, like just the whole series. I don't know how many episodes there are, or how many episodes there are.
At least 8 of them.
Okay, so we'll just watch them over the course of the week, and then maybe we'll review them on Monday. CB says Urban Gothic is a fantastic horror series from the UK, but only 2 seasons. I'll have to look that up. I'm gonna write it down.
I was also wanting to see the UK series Survivors.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, you were telling me about that.
People that survived this plague.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of goes sideways. It's like kind of post-apocalyptic.
Kevin Evans says, ever see Creature with Klaus Kinski? Anything with Klaus in it is weird.
Yeah.
I might have, but I'm gonna look. That sounds familiar. I know we've done a couple. Well, we did Crawl Space, didn't we? That other Klaus Kinski movie. I know we did that, but I don't think we did Creature.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to wrap it up. Go get some sandwiches. Well, we have sandwiches in the house.
Yeah,
we're not going to
make a steak sandwich.
Yeah, because I'm kind of hungry. All right, so thank you everybody for stopping by and hanging out with us this evening. Hopefully you can come on Wednesday night. We're going to do another serial killer show, but we're doing like historical serial killer. We're talking about a French World War II era serial killer, Marcel Petiot, otherwise known as Dr. Satan.
Oh shit!
Dude was he was something. He was something. All right. So that's the show we're doing on Wednesday night. So hopefully you guys can join us for that. Have a good rest of your evening, you guys. Have a good day tomorrow, and we'll see you guys again on Wednesday